Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be my October reading wrap-up. As you may know, the past couple of months I was in a reading slump, but I am very happy to report that in October the slump was broken. I read 9 books and DNF'd 1 for a total of 3,196 pages and an average star rating of 3.22 stars. Most books that I read in October I gave 3 stars, with a few 4s and 1 2. I definitely got back into the reading spirit in the month of October. Since we have so many books to talk about, let's just dive right in. The first book that I read was Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel, which I gave 4 stars. This is a mythology retelling inspired by the Hindu epic, the Ramayana. In the original epic, Kaikeyi is depicted as the stepmother of King Rama, and this is supposed to be a feminist retelling that tells the story from her perspective. I did quite like this. I thought it was very well written. I liked the characters, and one thing that I really did like about it is that the main character, Kaikeyi, she marries a king from a different kingdom, and he actually already has 2 wives when she marries him. So she is the 3rd wife in a plural marriage, basically. And the book actually depicts the 4 of them as getting along well for the most part, and the women being very supportive of each other, which was honestly nice to see, that the women weren't pit against each other, you know, fighting over a man or anything like that. And it was kind of nice to see this, by our society's standards, unconventional relationship actually working out like fairly well most of the time. I thought that was nice, actually. The main character, Kaikeyi, apparently was also written to be aromantic and asexual, which is also awesome. The aromantic and asexual community is not well represented in fiction. I think that's the most generous way I can phrase it. The representation is practically non-existent, so I thought that was really cool that the author wrote the main character to be aromantic and asexual. We love to see it. I think my biggest complaint about this book is the ending felt a little rushed to me. I feel like everything wrapped up very quickly and things happened a little bit too fast in the last few chapters. So I wish that the pacing there had been slowed down a little more, because it felt to me like our title character kind of hit her lowest point, and then they were like, oh, never mind, here's the ending, it's all gonna be okay. And I just kind of felt like it was a little jarring just how quickly the ending came about. But all in all, I thought this was a good book, and I would read from this author again. I think she has another book coming out sometime in 2024, so I may have to check that one out. Next, I read Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier, which I gave 3 stars. I enjoyed this book fine, though I will confess I'm already having a hard time remembering some of what happened in it. So this book follows a main character named Paris, and at the beginning of the book, Paris is arrested for the death of her husband, a famous comedian. Her husband is found dead in their bathtub, possibly of suicide, possibly of murder, and Paris is arrested for the crime. Though, in addition to worrying about if she's going to be found guilty of murder or not, Paris is also fearful because she knows this case is going to get a lot of media attention, and there is someone out there, Ruby Reyes, a killer known as the Ice Queen, who could potentially expose secrets from Paris's past. I did not dislike the book. I thought it was entertaining enough, and it was a quick read. However, I think the very beginning of the book has a lot of telling in it. There will just be paragraphs and paragraphs describing the backstory of different characters, and I feel like that really should have been trimmed down in editing because it was a lot of info dumps at the beginning, and I felt like sometimes Jennifer Hillier was saying things that she could have shown us instead of just telling them. Like, for instance, there's this lawyer character, and the book says, oh, she's a really hotshot lawyer. You know, she's so forceful and she gets her way in the courtroom. Well, why didn't you show us that instead by, like, having her personality come through in dialogue? Instead of just telling me that she's so smart, show me that she's smart. So that was a big problem I had with it. I actually liked the book more once we switched perspectives. We start off in Paris's perspective, and then we switch to a male character who is the host of a true crime podcast. And I actually really liked his parts, but now I can't even remember what his name was. I'm so sorry. I forget his name, but I felt like the story really picked up when we got to that storyline, and I was a little more invested there. I did, however, guess where the story was going, and I don't think there was any reveal that was really surprising to me. I predicted all of them before they happened. So, I mean, a decent read. There were things that I liked about it, but it didn't knock my socks off like I was hoping it would. I'll definitely read more books by Jennifer Hillier in the future. I've read, I think, 3 books by her, and everyone has gotten either a 3 or a 4. So she definitely is an author I'm going to keep reading, and I'll give her many more chances. Next up is a book that I have an entire review video for, so I will be brief, but I read Last Night at the Hollywood Canteen by Sarah James. This was an arc on NetGalley, so thank you once again to the publisher Source Books Landmark for allowing me to read this book early in exchange for an honest review. I quite liked this one as well. I gave it 4 stars, and you can watch that entire book review video if you want more specific thoughts. This is a historical mystery set in old Hollywood during World War II. The main character, Annie, is a murder mystery playwright who moves from New York City to Los Angeles after she's offered a contract with the film studio Pacific Pictures. She falls in with a new group of friends, and the group includes the acerbic reviewer, Fiona Ferris. Fiona turns up dead at the Hollywood Canteen, and Annie takes it upon herself to solve the murder. I thought this book was well written. It was my first Sarah James book, and if she comes out with more historical mysteries, I will definitely check her out. Again, I think there was some great dialogue in this book. My complaint is I wish that the villain reveal had been done a little differently because I felt like it didn't impact me as much as it could have. You know, it was a solution that I had considered, and I just wish there was like a little bit more to it. I felt like this was a really good book overall, and I would definitely check the author out again. You should definitely go get a copy if this sounds interesting to you. I think it is worth your time. Now, my 2-star read of the month was Playing Nice by J.P. Delaney. This is a mystery thriller, but I don't know if it is technically. I felt like the thing that I really didn't like about this book is it is so long, and I think it's a little slow. I think that the plot of the book should have been tighter so that it would have had a faster pace and just not been so long. It's a very long mystery thriller, like I think pushing 500 pages, which is too long for a mystery thriller in my opinion. This book follows a couple with a 2-year-old son, and one day they receive a visit from this man who says that their son is actually his son because the children were accidentally switched at birth. They decide that they're going to make this work and let the kids be in each other's lives, but things take a sinister turn. I am using descriptions instead of the characters' names because, to be honest, I don't remember any of their names. And that was another one of the problems that I had with this book, as I really didn't like any of the characters. The main female character in particular, I did not care for her. There was a bit of an infidelity situation there, and I just didn't really believe that these two were actually a strong couple. I just think this book was too long and it started to drag, so I wasn't as excited by it as I want to be from a thriller book. The reveal, again, wasn't that shocking. Another thing this author did that personally bothered me is, so all of the main characters in this book are presumably white and presumably heterosexual, but sometimes the author would reference people who don't belong to those communities. Like, at one point he references the main couple. They went to a wedding for two of their gay friends, and he makes a passing comment like, if you can't let loose at a gay wedding, where can you let loose? Which I was like, okay, why a gay wedding specifically? Why, if he had just written, you can let loose at a wedding, I would have been like, okay, but it kind of seemed like he was stereotyping gay men a little bit, and I think the only people of color who are mentioned in the book are an Indian couple, they don't have names, who were also in the NICU, and they had a baby daughter who was dying or did die. But they don't get any lines or names or anything. And it just felt like the author was trying to check a box by mentioning, look, they know gay people, look, Indian people exist. And I'm like, but it just felt like checking a box to me. And I personally didn't care for it. If you're gonna include gay people or people of color in your book, at least, give them names, dialogue. Hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. Again, that's just my personal opinion. Yeah, that's it. Next, my Read Christie book for the month was The Underdog and Other Stories. This is a short story collection from the Poirot series, and I gave this 3 stars. It was enjoyable. I don't think there were any standouts in this collection, but granted, as I've said many times before on my channel, I personally am not a huge fan of mystery short stories. I love mysteries, but I just feel like in short stories, since there's no time to really develop any red herrings or anything, it always is obvious, who did it. I've never gotten to the end of a short story and been really surprised because, there's only such a small group of characters. There's not time for many misdirects. So whenever I get to the end of a mystery short story, I'm not like, wow, that was a really surprising twist. I'm just like, that person did it? Yeah, makes sense. That tracks. You know what I mean? The stories in this collection were The Underdog, The Plymouth Express, The Affair at the Victory Ball, The Market Basing Mystery, The Lee Mesurier Inheritance? I have no idea how to pronounce that. The Cornish Mystery, The King of Clubs, The Submarine Plans, and The Adventure of the Clapham Cook. So I read all my Poirot short stories in this bind-up. Let me get it. Right here, Hercule Poirot, the complete short stories. I always read them. In this book, they actually did not have the submarine plans in here, so I did not technically read that one. However, the submarine plans was later expanded into a different short story that I have read. It was called The Incredible Theft. I believe it was expanded into The Incredible Theft, so this book only includes that short story since it's basically just a longer version of the submarine plans. So technically, I didn't read the entire The Underdog and Other Stories because I did not have access to the submarine plans, but I have read The Incredible Theft, which is basically the same story, so I'm still counting it. I think the two most memorable stories in this collection, in my opinion, were the title story, The Underdog, and the Le Messier Inheritance. I have no idea how to say that. I've never seen that name before in my life. It's spelled, where is it? Lemessurier. Les Messerier. I don't know. My apologies. I have no idea how to say that. But that story was good. The L Inheritance. I have no idea how to say that. I'm sorry. And I almost forgot. I finally finished reading Georgian London Into the Streets by Lucy Inglis. I gave this 4 stars. I originally started reading this in July for Jane Austen July, and then I put it down, and in October I was like, I'm finally gonna get back to this book and finish it after like 2 months of not reading it. And it was good. So basically, this is a nonfiction book talking about Georgian London and going through neighborhood by neighborhood to talk about, you know, some of the things that you would find there, what daily life was like for the people who lived in these places, and also some interesting anecdotes from throughout the Georgian era in London. I picked this up because the murder mystery novel I'm currently submitting to literary agents takes place in Regency era London, so this was research as well as just being fun. And hopefully my book gets picked up, because I tabbed down some of these pages with parts that inspired me for potential future books or characters. So keep your fingers crossed for me that somebody wants to represent my book and we get it published and we get sequels, because I got ideas. I have ideas. And finally, we'll close this out with all of the thrillers that I read for my thriller reading vlog. I will link that in the card. First, I read The Other Misses by Mary Kubica. This was a 3-star read for me. This is a sort of domestic thriller following Sadie. Sadie, her husband Will, and their 2 children move to this remote community in Maine to care for Will's recently orphaned niece Imogen, who is a very moody, like, stereotypical goth teenager. We find out that Sadie and Will have had some hardships in their marriage before they left their previous home in Chicago, and one of their new neighbors, Morgan, is killed. Sadie starts to feel like other members of this community are suspecting her. I thought this book was fine. It had a twist regarding mental health that I was not crazy about. I can't speak for how accurate the representation was. I saw somebody on Goodreads actually say that their very close friend has the same mental illness and they feel like the author did a pretty good job writing it, for what that's worth. But I personally just don't really like thrillers that involve characters with mental illnesses, because I just feel like it's potentially offensive to like use a character's mental illness as a reveal, or depict somebody who's mentally ill as committing violent acts, because a majority of people with mental illness are not violent. And other than that, like, it's just a tired trope at this point. I've seen it done and I didn't need to see it again. So the potential harmful effects aside, it just also wasn't a very original reveal. This book also contains some pretty disturbing content around child abuse and the violent killing of animals, which was very hard to read. Obviously, it was intended to be disturbing, but I personally do not like having to read about those topics. And I just think that's also important to mention, because other people, you know, you may not want to read about those either. So I think it is important to mention. I didn't hate this book, but I didn't really particularly enjoy it either. Like, I felt like it was fine. Then I DNF'd Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. I did not like this at all. I'm so sorry. I've read several other Lisa Jewell books and enjoyed them. This one, I didn't like it. I don't get the hype. This is a book that I added to my TBR because I saw a lot of people give it 5 stars, though granted, some people also commented on my video when I said I was going to read this that it did not work for them, and guess what? It did not work for me either. This book follows Laurel. Several years ago, Laurel's teenage daughter, Ellie, disappeared. Now, years later, Laurel starts dating this man named Floyd, who has a daughter named Poppy, and Poppy looks remarkably like Ellie. So that's the basic premise, and why this book didn't work for me. I literally guessed where the book was going solely based off the Goodreads plot description. And that's not good. That's not good, in my opinion, if I can predict where the book is going before I even read a single page of the book. So that was extremely disappointing. Like, I don't think on a line level it was badly written. I personally, though, like to read mysteries and thrillers to be surprised. And if I'm not going to be surprised, I want to at least feel like I had to work hard to guess. You know what I mean? Like, I want to feel like, okay, I saw where the book was going, but the author did a really good job at creating clues and making it difficult for me. So the fact that I knew where this book was going before I read any of it just ruined it for me. I wasn't a fan. I know a lot of people gave this 5 stars. It has a very high Goodreads rating. I don't know that I personally understand what people loved about this. Maybe other people didn't think it was obvious, but to me, this is one of the most obvious thrillers I've read. I literally read 50%, skipped and read the last chapter, and I was like, yep, I could have predicted this. Got it. And it was not for me. I'm not opposed to reading more Lisa Jewell. I've liked other books by her. This one was just not a winner. I'm sorry. I really wanted to like it, and I did not. Next, I read Hostage by Claire McIntosh. This was another 3, though I will say it was probably my favorite book of that vlog. This book takes place on an airplane which is flying nonstop from London to Sydney. We follow a flight attendant named Mina. We also follow the perspective of her husband. I think his name was Adam, but now is that actually what his name was? I think it was Adam. Her husband, Adam, who she is currently estranged from, and their daughter, who are back home in England. We follow both their perspectives. And on this flight, Mina is slipped a note from one of the passengers saying, "We are hijacking this plane. If you do not cooperate and help us, we're going to kill your daughter." So, what is she going to do? That's a really interesting question and a struggle that I kind of wish this book dealt with a little more, because I feel like this choice, you know, obviously if you're a parent, you love your child more than anything in the world, but if you're faced with this decision, can you actually choose your child's life potentially over the lives of all of these other people? That's a real moral conundrum, and I feel like Claire McIntosh did not dive into that moral conundrum. She kind of just talked about it a little bit, but clearly one viewpoint was presented as the right viewpoint, in my opinion, and I'm not sure I agree with Claire McIntosh on that. So I wish that moral dilemma had been a more integral part of the book. But what I liked about this book, some of the scenes on the plane, genuinely really tense. There was a character death. I was shocked. The last chapter, amazing last chapter. It was messed up, it was twisted, and I liked it. It was a great finale to the book. So I had issues with it. I did not really care for the husband character. I didn't find him likable. There was also a subplot involving him that I feel like wasn't really resolved. But there were some good things about this, some things that I really liked. The ending in particular was great. So that's why it was my favorite book in the vlog. I had some positives and some negatives, but pretty decent overall. Lastly, I read The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Peckenden. This was another 3-star read. I would say it was my second favorite in that vlog. This book follows a married couple named Matthew and Marissa Bishop. They seem to have it all. They seem to be a golden couple, but Marissa was unfaithful, so the two of them end up going to see a counselor named Avery. Avery was a therapist. She lost her license due to some things that she did with a previous client. She broke some of the therapist code of ethics and lost her license. So now these two are coming to Avery for help to save their marriage. She is using her unconventional program to help them, but it turns out that all of them have secrets and stuff's gonna go down. Stuff's gonna go down. Thoughts on this book? There's not really a strong inciting incident like there would be in some other mystery thrillers. You know, most mysteries and thrillers, the beginning of the book, boom, somebody dies. And so then the entire book is about this murder. That didn't really happen in this book, so it was more of a slow burn. I personally was still interested. I read it fairly quickly, so I wouldn't say it was boring, but some people might think it's boring, you know, depending on your own personal taste. There were some things that did not get resolved. There were things that happened in this book that didn't go anywhere, and that was a little irritating to me. And so I felt like there were some things that should have been edited out. But I quite liked the ending of this book as well. There was a reveal of like who, let's just say, the bad guy was. And I did not think that person was going to be the bad guy. When it happened, I was like, wait, what? That person? Huh, didn't see that coming. So I liked it. I liked to be surprised. And I think, you know, the ending was really good. It was more so just some of the things that happened along the way that I had issues with, because like I said, there were some characters who literally like were not really relevant. And so I was like, oh, so this was literally just here to overwhelm and confuse me. It didn't mean anything. Oh, okay. So we could have just cut this plot out of the book and it would have had no impact on the rest of the book whatsoever. That was the thing that bothered me, but I did really like the reveal. So that was a high point. So I think that is it for all of my October reads. All in all, not a bad month. Have you read any of these books? If so, let me know what you thought of them in the comment section down below. Let me know what you read in the month of October. What was your favorite book you read, your least favorite? I would love to hear from you. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more from me. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.